Okay, well, welcome back. This is the work session on Las Cruces City Council. Today is Monday, April 24th, 2023. It's approximately 2:05 p.m. We've already done our pets of the week and jobs of the week. We're going to go right into the three-item agenda. The first one being 3.1, progress report on Realize Las Cruces, and Deputy Director David Ware and the consultants will be providing the discussion. David?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. As you said, this item is an update to the Realize Las Cruces project. And if you also recall, Realize Las Cruces is the project name that we've given the update of the land development codes. And so today, to provide that presentation, is Freeze Nichols. We have Erica Craycraft and Karen Perez. And so I'll turn it over to Erica.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Erica Craycraft with Freeze Nichols, and it's great to be back here with you all today. Again, my name is Erica Craycraft, and I'm the project manager for the Development Code Update, and joining me today is Karen Perez, and you can see several of our other key team members here, most of whom you've seen at previous meetings. Our assistant project manager is Dawn Warwick, also Fred Lopez, and local attorney Dana Kyle is helping us out on this effort as well. The agenda for today, I'd like to share a reminder of our overall process and approach to the code update and share a status update about where we are and where we're headed. Next, I'd like to highlight some items from the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan, which, if you recall, that's a major focus of the Development Code Update to bring that forward into implementation. So I will highlight some of those working sections, also look at some next steps, and then I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you might have. So first, starting with the process, you can see the major scope items here, just to give everyone an idea of the topics that we are looking at through this process. Some of the big ones are the zoning districts and the zoning map, which will be updated as part of this process. Also, the drainage regulations, signs, outdoor lighting, landscaping, roadways is a big piece of this. Landscaping, parks, park dedication, tree preservation, screening, fencing, buffering. It's a really wide range of topics included within this scope, but generally all things land development. The overall process is a three-phased process. You may have noticed that we have extended our timeline on the overall process. Initially, we had been looking at a 2-year timeline, and we're currently looking at more like a 3-year timeline to get all the way to completion. A couple reasons for that delay. We've had several rounds of back and forth revisions working with your city staff to make sure that the drafts are incorporating all of their comments and that they are ready for the drafts to move forward. Also, based on council direction, we've been working with the Technical Advisory Committee, or the TAC. So they're meeting generally twice a month to review drafts and provide comments back to us. So we're incorporating their comments into the review as well. But that has added on a little bit of time to our overall process. Backing up to the beginning, we started in phase 1 that we call a diagnostic evaluation. And at that time, we were reviewing your existing plans like the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan and others, as well as your existing codes, and talking to people who are frequent code users, also members of City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission, members of the development community, and others to formulate really our game plan for moving forward with the code updates. So we spent about 6 months in the beginning really working through how are we going to move forward with the process. Next, in phase 2, which is where we currently are, approaching the end of that's the actual drafting of the new development code and the new zoning map. And looking ahead to phase 3, which will be the public review and the refinement and potentially the future adoption process. We are looking to shift to public review drafts around the end of this year and aiming for target adoption in early 2024. A look more closely at the phase 2 process, again, the process that we're in now, how we are drafting the code. Our team, the consultants, put together a draft section. We send it to your city staff, and a group of them review that content and provide comments back to us. We make revisions based on their comments. And so depending on the different sections, we've had several rounds of review, just making sure, again, that we're getting all of their comments incorporated. So that's our first set of steps, is incorporating city staff comments and making sure that it's ready to move forward. Then it moves forward to the Technical Advisory Committee, or the TAC, that was appointed by council. I mentioned that they're meeting about twice a month. They've had 12 or 14 meetings to date where they're reviewing all of this content and providing comments back to us as well. And also city staff sometimes has other comments to add in with those, based on some comments or concerns that might have been raised by the TAC. So that's our review process that we work through in each one of these topic-specific sections. So zoning, for example, goes through the process, and then the roadways section goes through the process. So we are doing topic-based reviews. Next, moving on to some of the highlights on how we are incorporating your existing plans. And I'd just like to really emphasize that these are working drafts. Some of the sections the TAC hasn't seen yet, but we've been working with city staff on them, and wanted to give you a preview so you could understand what we've been working on and how we are moving forward. So the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan really provides a lot of direction for the development code. During that process, you guys had very substantial public involvement through the development of that plan. And that plan has a lot of different recommendations that came out of it. There's nearly 500 recommendations, I think, that came out of that plan. And about 200 of them are related to the development code. There's also other recommendations like other capital improvements or follow-up studies that might not be covered really by the development code, but we're focusing on the ones that are. So there are about, I think I mentioned 200 recommendations that we've pulled forward into our process and our review. So we've been going through all of these through what Elevate Las Cruces calls a policy framework. So we're taking this direction from Elevate, but also from your other plans as well. We're looking at the active transportation plan, Parks Master Plan, other plans like that that are really informing our process. Elevate also has recommendations related to the physical framework of the city. Here you can see from Elevate the future development map. And so from this, we have been working with city staff to develop new zoning districts that are incorporating the character areas through character-based districts. And what that will do, and what we've been working on, is developing districts that will have special calibration for how the building and site are designed based on which character area they're in. And when I say character area, that's referring to urban, suburban, or rural that are established by the Elevate map. So that is how we are incorporating those. The character areas are looking at elements like the density, the dwelling units per acre, or the setbacks, the building orientation, things like that are more about the form of the development. We also have other districts like the commercial and retail districts or industrial that do have a more traditional approach as well. The Elevate Future Development Map also includes what is called town center overlays and mixed-use corridor overlays. So we are pulling those forward and implementing those through zoning overlay districts, and the intent right now where we're working with those districts is to use them to increase density and walkability and vibrancy of these identified areas. Also, the neighborhood center concept, those are the smaller areas that you see in the blue circles. We are working toward incorporating them as a use that's permitted in the use chart, so it wouldn't require a special rezoning to be able to do it. We want to make it as easy as possible to have these in the right places. So we're looking at whether we would be able to do those by right, perhaps, or whether an SUP might be needed in certain cases, but that is something that we are actively implementing. Elevate also has guidance on roadway design and also the adjacent streetscape. So we've been looking at Elevate and also the active transportation plan to come up with some roadway cross sections that would be included. Here you can see a preview of what we've been working on. Again, these are very much in progress, but we are looking at, this example is showing a minor arterial, for example, and how that might look different in the different character areas. So again, looking back to the Elevate guidance for character and pulling that forward. So we can see different configurations that implement bike and pedestrian and transit infrastructure. Also, the top items on here shown as new construction, that would be for the ideal construction of new roads, and then the retrofit alternatives. We're looking at some options where there is constrained right-of-way for when a road is being rebuilt. What would that look like? Because we've heard a lot about infill constraints. So for each roadway type, we are customizing it really for each character zone. Other new sections that we've been working on implementing the plans, we'll have regulations related to street trees that again vary by character area. Looking at parking lot landscaping, you can see an example of one of the graphics that we're including to try to transition to a more graphic-based plan that's, code that's going to be easier for users to understand. Including tree removal permits, that would be something that would be done at the Development Review Committee level right now as we're working through the draft. That's what we've recommended. Park dedication, the city is in the process of updating your park impact fees, so we're also working with your other consultant to make sure that those sections are aligned for park dedication and also for trails. Infill development, we've heard throughout the input process that infill development is going to be an important consideration. So something that we have been doing, we've focused on the flexible development standards, if you're familiar with those in the current code, and looking for ways that we may be able to either update those or expand those, but really focusing on how can we use those standards to allow common sense modifications at the administrative level to help facilitate infill and redevelopment. And some of those, we're looking at two different levels. One would be at the director level, and then one would be at the Development Review Committee level, but looking at both of those ideally being administrative changes. We are also incorporating some of the existing standards where you have flexibility for average setbacks in a current developed neighborhood. So if there's one particular site that's redeveloping, making sure that it's compatible with the development on either side of it, and also that may allow more flexibility for them as well. I mentioned the street design criteria where we have the different cross sections for narrower right-of-way and how those can be implemented, incorporating the bike and ped infrastructure. We've also retained the provision that the city is able to waive application fees or refund application fees for infill development at the city's discretion. So that's an existing provision that we intend to keep. We're also reviewing the infill development overlay, which is part of zoning, and the infill subdivision process, which is part of subdivision. We're reviewing those and seeing are there provisions included there that could be updated, or some that even could potentially be expanded citywide to help facilitate and streamline development citywide if it's a process that's already working. A few other items to highlight that are other major concepts from Elevate and the Active Transportation Plan and others. I mentioned a little bit earlier about building form standards, particularly in the character areas where we're really trying to encourage pedestrian-oriented development, walkable areas. Supporting what's called missing middle housing variety, and that really refers to duplexes, townhomes, quadplexes, accessory dwelling units, all the different types of housing that fall between a traditional detached single-family home and a high-density apartment complex, all the things in the middle. So incorporating that through zoning. Supporting neighborhood service uses, those are referring to local scale retail and commercial type uses that are intended to support the neighborhoods. And those would also be reflected through the neighborhood center use type. Multimodal traffic impact analyses, that was a direction that we heard from both your city staff and the technical advisory committee. So we've been working on revising that section to make sure that our traffic impact analysis and studies are incorporating multimodal approaches and also connectivity both from a vehicular and pedestrian standpoint. And our last section that is remaining, that it's really under development. All the other sections that I've mentioned, we have a working draft, and we're going through that cycle of working with city staff and or the advisory committee. But the last section that we are working on right now is the low impact development section. And the reason that it's happening last is because it relates to so many different sections of the code. So it relates to drainage, roadways, landscaping, zoning, all of the sections really. And so now that we have an initial working draft of all of those sections, now we can start to look at, well, what could we incorporate in low impact development standards, and what can we offer as incentives to encourage people to do these different LID elements and controls voluntarily. So as an example, we have suggested that if an applicant provides additional landscaping or they reduce their impervious coverage, then in exchange for that, maybe they could have increased density, residential density, or increased building height in exchange for that. We have also talked about the importance of maintenance for low-impact development, that it does require special maintenance a lot of the time, indefinitely, basically. So if they're getting a permanent incentive that's going to be something like a density bonus or increased height, there needs to be a permanent agreement that it will be maintained in perpetuity. So that is something we are working on now. Looking ahead at our next steps, our first step is to continue working with city staff and the advisory committee on developing the draft code and refining that and getting it to the complete draft. Next, we would like to bring that complete draft back to City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that is likely in the November-December timeframe. So once we would have a complete draft, we would bring it to you all for your feedback and any revisions or questions, any adjustments that we need to make before it moves forward to the public. Because in January, that's when we would like to present it after the holidays, get it out to the public and share it with everyone for their feedback and any questions or other comments that the community might have. We'd like to host an in-person open house event. It would also have a virtual alternative, but there would be an in-person event. And that effort would include first an educational component, just so everyone understands and feels like they have the background that they need to participate in the process and provide their feedback about what is the development code and what does it mean for me. We would like to share at that point highlights of the draft, allow feedback opportunities from the public, and also allow for one-on-one discussions with property owners. A lot of times there can be concern from the public, especially with the zoning map updates, about what does this mean for me and my property. So we would like to consider that as part of the open house event, to be able to sit down and have more focused conversations with people. Also, on the realizelascruces.com website, there is a virtual open house that's been live since really the beginning of the process. We're still getting comments every once in a while on that page. We are still monitoring it. So if anyone has comments that they would like to share, feel free to get on the website and share comments there. Also in January, around that same time frame as the open house, we'd like to revisit with all of the code users who we met with at the beginning of the process whenever we were doing that phase 1 diagnostic report. And we'd like to talk with them about, did we adequately address your concerns? Do you have any new concerns with the updated draft? But making sure that we close that feedback loop and going back to them again to get their feedback on the draft. And just a reminder of who the different folks were that we met with at the beginning and that we'd like to circle back with: members of council, the Planning and Zoning Commission, city staff, developers, and several other stakeholders in the community who are often involved in the development process. We'd like to bring that input that we hear in January through those, the open house and the code user feedback meetings, and bring that back to you all with some proposed revisions. So based on what we heard from the community, we think that the following revisions might be appropriate to the draft, and see what your direction would be. Once we have that input incorporated, then we would be ready to move forward to the formal public hearing. So we like to have an opportunity to invite the public for informal feedback through the open house, so we don't wait until the very end of the formal public hearing. So the open house is intended to be more of an informal exchange and Q&A, and there's still time to make revisions and things like that. So that is our general timeline and a quick overview of the process. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Just Councilor Flores, Bencomo, Graham. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Karen, for your presentation. I like your plans. I like it all, but I do have a lot of questions. In the final plan that we are presented with, is there going to be any area that you're going to focus on? For example, a new development or infill, or is this just a guideline for that sort of work?
Thank you for the question. It would be not guidelines, it would be enforceable regulations, and it would apply to all new development. And for, say you had an existing structure that was going to expand a certain percentage, they were going to expand 20% or something like that, there would be different triggers for what regulations might apply to that development.
So do you have specific projects that the city community development department would be working with specifically? I mean, have you looked at you did look at infill, but say there's a building on that infill property. Are codes going to be designed to meet the goal of that development, given what's already there?
So any development that is existing or that has already started the development process, they are allowed to keep doing exactly what they're doing. There's no changes that anyone would have to make to their property if they just continued whatever their use was or whatever their building was. There's no changes that are required until if they wanted to redevelop the site or a large addition at that time, the new rules would apply.
Okay, so if there's some infill going on now, they're not going to be bound by these?
Correct.
Okay, so they're not, that closes. So, and you're not looking at a specific part of the city to design a development, correct?
Correct. We are not establishing the design for any one site of the city. It's more about the general form for, the regulations are citywide, but the different zoning districts, of course, apply differently to wherever they are on the map, but there's not anything that is parcel specific to a particular development.
Right. So what about the missing middle in terms of housing? How would that look like in terms of the codification or the whatever, the rules? What would that look like hypothetically? I mean, this is what you do. So how would that be written? The missing middle.
Great question.
And then are there parts of the city where, or I don't know if this question is for you, but would there be parts of the city that would be designated as the missing middle housing?
So missing middle housing, we would address, or we are addressing through zoning. And the zoning chapter will have a permitted use chart. And so it's just a matrix that lists all the districts across the top and all the uses down the side. And so examples of the uses would be those housing types, so a duplex, a triplex, quadplex, cottage court, accessory dwelling unit. So we can use that matrix to say these housing types are allowed by right in these districts. And so our upcoming effort working through the mapping part of that will be that the map that I'm showing on the screen here is from Elevate. So ours will be more detailed than this, but we are looking at this. So we would say, for example, that the orange on here, just again as an example, the I think it's urban neighborhood is the category there. So in this example, all of those missing middle types could be allowed by right in that geographic area.
So they would be throughout the city, in wherever there's space that would lend itself to development?
I don't know that we would allow them by right everywhere, or if it's going to be more detailed about whether it's more appropriate in the urban areas because it's more walkable to more amenities and services. If we have missing middle in more of the rural areas, that gets a little bit harder with providing services to the areas as far as infrastructure or also being able to walk to different amenities. Yes, please.
Mayor and Councilor Flores, just if I can add to that, I agree with everything that Eric has stated, what we're trying to do. But the other thing that we're doing, if you see the first bullet, what it talks about within each of the character areas, the urban, suburban, and residential, we'll have residential zoning districts, these neighborhood zoning districts, and the mixed use. And so like in the residential areas, we are going to respect, or we propose to respect some of the single-family neighborhoods, but we anticipate adding more ability to do the accessory dwelling units. And then in the neighborhood is ones where you see kind of a mix of uses, and so that would be a key area to put some of those missing middle components in. So like if you're in a rural area, it would be more likely that it would be residential in nature, but we would also have where there would be some services and some shopping opportunities at a very reasonable scale. And then your mixed use would be your area where you would have all those uses from residential to commercial and multifamily. So that's what we're working with the consultants to incorporate, and that's one of the key components of Elevate Las Cruces, is provide those additional housing opportunities.
So, Mr. Weir, you say you're working with consultants. Is it Freeze and Nichols? Or?
Yes, I'm sorry. I should say Eric and Karen and Don.
Yeah, Eric and Karen. But I know that we have a proposed development in the Loman, East Loman. There's a plan there, but it's another company, I think. It's Southwest, I think, something. Correct. But so this seems to be an overview of making Realize Las Cruces, realizing Realize Las Cruces.
Mayor and Councilor Flores, that's correct. This will become the development standards citywide, and so this is the tool that the city's able to do to implement. We use the term implement, but basically the vision and guidelines that have been put forward in Elevate Las Cruces, when someone comes into a project, we're adopting standards so that they will build to that and meet those contribute to meeting that vision that the Elevate Las Cruces sets out.
Okay, and then I have another question that is definitely a policy issue, or I'm just wondering, in terms of the missing middle housing, are there going to be any incentives for developers, for builders, excuse me, not developers, well, maybe developers, but builders to assure that we have that? Because that's really, we talk about homelessness, but it doesn't just, and then we think of someone, someone who's walking down the street, with a backpack, but there are a lot of people who, excuse me, who are also homeless insofar as looking for a home they can buy. So is the city going to be working with developers in that regard? Thank you.
Mayor and Councilor Flores, there I think are many fronts that the city is exploring in that manner. We're through the zoning code and land development codes, we're providing opportunities for that type of housing to be developed. Some of the other tools that you're utilizing, you recently identified 2 areas for MRAs. You can collect funds and reinvest in those areas, and so that's an incentive that can take place. The other thing is when the city does capital improvements, if there's a certain area of town that you're reinvesting in, you're making that commitment to the area. So those are 2 other prongs that the city can use, but the land development code basically is what takes place in the property. So it's one, allowing the missing middle products to be in the various zoning districts, and then there were, as was in your presentation, talking about the infill area, there are other incentives where they may, if they provide these certain components, they can do more units or more dwellings, and that's an incentive of itself. So we're trying to do through the land use regulations what we can to incentivize providing those missing middle, but we also know that we need to complement those other efforts of the city.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Weir, and thank you so much, Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to kind of correct this and go to Mayor Pro Tem and then Councilor Bencomo. All right. Councilor Bencomo. Okay, Councilor Curran.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the expanded sort of thing which answered some of my questions. I wasn't on council when you all did the initial conversations, and I appreciate hearing how much you've been thinking about and integrating all of the things that are in Elevate. But I would also say I hope, I feel like some things, even in the last year, have changed in terms of public rhetoric and understanding how zoning can affect housing insecurity in particular, but a number of other things. So I hope, it sounds like a lot of things like promoting ADUs and reducing administrative burden that comes to certain types of development, which I know ADUs are a really interesting study in like zoning and setbacks and all of the things that we've constructed to prevent them, I think, historically. So I'm curious, I hope that we can continue to sort of push the edges of that, and it sounds like you all are doing that, and I appreciate it, with a particular emphasis on facilitating increased density and all of the things that you allude to. I hope also in the incentives or even in the zoning code, in particular related to commercial zoning, but also mixed use developments, that we can look at some of the ways that people are innovating parking conversations. You sort of alluded to this a little bit, but I think we've historically allowed for a lot of sort of parking development, or required a lot of parking development, and I hope that we can change that dynamic as well as we go to it. And then I also appreciate you identifying some of the ways that we're reducing the administrative tax that we put on people who want to make changes, in particular going to the DRCs versus going to department heads. And I just want to state that I hope that is one of the values that's maintained throughout, and it sounds like that's something that you're really thinking about, which is fewer things have to be reviewed across the board by both P&Z and the City Council, so that we can facilitate change in all of the ways. So I just really look forward to hearing those things in the future conversations, in particular how we might facilitate increased density, reduce parking, and reduce administrative burden. Those are things that you alluded to, and I know that they're all in development, but I just hope that in the future we can hear more about that. So I guess I don't even have a question. There you go, it's more of a comment, sorry about that. But thank you, Erica, David, Karen, thank you.
Thank you for the comment. One quick follow-up on that, the parking reductions, I didn't really mention it in the presentation, but we do have some by right parking reductions proposed for the infill areas, and then also looking at the idea of introducing a parking maximum. So you can't exceed the minimum by a certain percentage, or if you do, it has to be permeable pavement, for example. So again, very much a work in progress, but something that we are looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bencomo.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks again for coming to give us an update on this. I had some similar questions, and David, you touched on some of them, but I kind of want to dig in a little bit deeper. I appreciated the frame you gave around common sense modifications to, help development, especially in the infill areas. Just a couple weeks ago, we had a meeting with Senator Martin Heinrich and the Home Builders Association, who were there, who brought up waiving fees in the infill versus refunding fees, and how burdensome that can still be, right? They still have to pay a ton of those fees up front and then waiting to get reimbursed. I'm wondering if you've had a discussion around which works better and how we can make the just waiving fees up front go a lot faster. I know that Natalie Green and her department are working on, having those funds to make those departments whole. But I am curious about those two options, David.
Mayor and Councilor Bencomo, we have dealt with that some with park development and some of the incentives, but the actual waiving of fees is something that's really outside of this scope. But I think there may be opportunities with, the MRAs, just the way that the impact fees are updated and dealt with. But what the code will allow is it will have to match those and call out those opportunities as they go forward. But it's something that probably won't specifically be addressed in the land development code.
Got it.
But it will definitely make provisions. We won't tie the council's hands.
Got it, thank you. And also, we also spoke recently with our colleagues in Albuquerque, the Housing Forward department there, and we talked about some great ideas that they're implementing to increase affordable housing, especially in just affordable housing units, given that we are in a huge housing crisis and shortage. And a couple of the things they mentioned were parking requirements and eliminating some of those, which I think that you are looking at, especially in the infill. And then the other one, which you did briefly mention, was around height restrictions. And one of the things that they had noted in Albuquerque was that they are giving incentives in terms of height restrictions for developers who commit to making, let's say, at least 20% of the units affordable housing units, and they're giving them an extra floor or 2 floors or whatever, right? And so I'm wondering if, again, I don't know if that fits in this scope or not, but I think the height restrictions are, I think they're a good way moving forward in eliminating some of those for people who are wanting to build, especially in the infill and MRA areas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that comment. We don't currently have anything in the draft that provides an incentive for affordable housing. Our approach has been more, like you mentioned, the parking reductions, allowing more types of housing in more places. But I think that is something that we could certainly look at, providing incentives in exchange for affordable housing. That's not all cities are necessarily interested in it because it's something that you have to monitor over time, but that does seem to be a strong priority for Las Cruces, so we can certainly look at that.
Great, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then the other piece that had come up with that conversation with the folks from Albuquerque were around, and again, I don't know if this fits here, and you'll tell me if it doesn't, and David as well, because I know there's building codes, right, that then sort of overlay everything, but there's a lot of conversation around rehab for motels or hotels to become more permanent housing, and the sort of maybe zoning changes that need to happen around like kitchen requirements and sort of not eliminating them, right, but reducing the barriers for motel rehab, especially when it comes to like countertop and induction burners kinds of things. Is that within this scope, or am I know it's a little bit in the weeds, but I just wondered if it was pertinent to this conversation.
I think that's a great point, and it's loosely in the scope of this. A lot of what we refer to is back to the building code, which regulates a lot of that, but we do have some provisions that relate to what's considered a dwelling unit, does it have a kitchen, things like that. So we can review that for compatibility and also check with the building code.
Mayor and Councilor Bencomo, just wanted to reiterate, typically we've dealt with those issues in the building code, in particular kitchen, but there are provisions that allow us, as Erica said, we could provide some attention to that. We also have the existing building code that Mr. Nichols could help with that allows us some latitude in structures that are in the historic areas. But the department also works with the the construction industry department with the state, and I know there was a lot of discussion about maybe modifying those codes on a state level, and I know that we would incorporate them at a city level.
Okay.
In this big place.
Thank you. And if there's ever space to continue having this conversation as it relates to the intersection of affordable housing and infill zone, we'd love to have it at the Housing Policy Review Committee, especially, you know, as we're moving along through this. And if you wanted to come present to there, I'll work with Natalie Green. I think I saw her somewhere, and David for the opportunity to be able to do that. The home builders sit on that committee, and obviously the three of us on the council and a bunch of other stakeholders that work in affordable housing. I think we'd be really interested in having that conversation. And then lastly, I know that I raised this, I don't know, what, 2 years ago at this point. I don't know the first time you were here. I feel like I was way over there. We were still separated because of COVID. But I had done some research around cities and states. Well, one city in one state that had moved to eliminate single family zoning. And which, you know, is, I think, maybe a trend starting to pick up, right? I think given the kind of sprawl that we have seen in Las Cruces, especially with single family subdivisions, I think that as many incentives that we can provide to create missing middle housing, affordable housing, multifamily units, that we're not centralizing those to any one particular location of the city. And I know that we, you know, want to work with partners in good faith to move that forward, but I am curious about your thoughts on those kinds of policies and if they would be beneficial here.
Thank you for the question. That's something we could certainly look at more. As I mentioned in response to an earlier question, that different levels of density tend to be appropriate in different locations as far as infrastructure planning needs and things like that. That said, as we work through developing the code, if we do want to make some adjustments that would allow, say, small-scale density in all of the districts, that would be an easy adjustment to make as we're working through the process. But it's not currently set up that way, but it could be.
Okay. And I'm not saying it needs to happen now. I mean, I don't know when, again, we'll redo the entire zoning situation, but I really feel like, again, it's fairly new, right? I mean, it's only like Minnesota, Minneapolis, and then the state of Oregon have really done it, but I really feel like just in the brief reading I've done around eliminating single-family zoning, that it could be one piece of the puzzle to ensure that we're increasing housing opportunities for a variety of different kinds of people and families. And then I did appreciate, David, I just wanted to note that I had also on here written accessory dwellings, and so just working whatever needs to be done to make sure that we're making neighborhoods more diverse, I think is important, and that we do it now, again, because who knows when we'll be talking about this conversation again. I just feel like if we don't do something in code now to make sure that neighborhoods are more diverse, that there is more development that is encouraged for multifamily, for missing middle, those kinds of things, duplexes, that is just never going to happen. And so I just think we're in a critical moment that we can move some of these things forward. Thank you.
Councilor Graham?
Thank you. Thank you so much, presenters. Are our recently adopted MRA designations a part of this conversation? Are they being considered when we're thinking about other overlays, just in a way that if we can address some of the potential codes obstacles now, that would be great.
Not that I'm aware of, but I will defer that question.
Mayor and Councilor Graham, they're not specifically called out in this, but with the discussion in the new zoning districts, it would definitely complement the uses and the use of an MRA. So there's nothing that would be a hurdle, as Erica noted, and Councilor Curran. There's a concerted effort to make everything administrative or by right. That's not, if there's an opportunity, they don't have to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission or to the City Council, that it be handled at that staff or administrative level. And so I think the complement from an MRA is if they developed plans for adaptive reuse or whatever, that the zoning's in place that allows them to utilize that tool to reinvest in those properties, and that there's less barriers, like potentially less parking, less landscaping, that the two tools complement each other, and that's the intent. Is we've developed both. Well, I can say more knowledgeably about the zoning code, but I would anticipate the MRA in the same way.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. When you come, I always get overwhelmed because I feel like there's just so much. And when I think about when you're going to bring this at the end, it feels overwhelming to me. So these 10 topics, I don't know, do you have an idea of how you're going to bring this back to council? Is it going to be in one big plan? Is it going to be, couple or 3 topics that we can look at? Because the last thing I would like to see happen, when you're in the thick of it, you're having 14, 15 meetings with the TAC. I'm not in this every day, and I want a significant amount of time to review this and be ready for it. Over time, when I meet with developers and different folks of that sort, they bring up things that I'm now starting to keep a list, right? But it feels just daunting to me. So can you give me an idea of how you plan on presenting this to us in a way that's going to be beneficial for all?
Sure. Yes. Thank you for the question. Once you receive the draft for your review, we would like to share it with you in its entirety because there's so much of it that is interconnected. So whenever you have the draft, if you're looking at it online, you can click on a term and it'll take you to the definition, or it can take you to the reference section. And it's just a lot easier to navigate and understand the document when you have all the pieces there rather than looking at it one section at a time, as city staff can attest to, as that's how they're reviewing it. But for your review, we do envision that you would have the complete draft with plenty of time ahead of time to review it. Maybe that's something that we talk about further, whether there are some topic-specific work sessions or something so you'll have time to review it, and then one day we talk only about zoning or something like that, rather than just having all of your comments ready to go in one meeting. That might look a little bit different, but we do envision getting you the entire document in advance substantially of that meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think that will be helpful, but if you can do it topical as well, like, a few topics at a time to get us to that point. When we met a couple of years ago, you asked, well, you had these questions for us, right? And I'm like, well, these are sort of some of the things that might come up. And so I continue to be concerned about how it's going to, when you say we're going to give you enough time, I want to make sure that it's plenty of time. What are you looking at in terms of a time frame when you say we're going to give you plenty of time? A week, 2 weeks?
I would envision at least 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think it needs to be more. This is like 500 to 900 page document, I'm assuming.
Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, if you recall when Erica went through the next steps, the anticipation is for the draft to be done in November and December, and then there's not an expectation that it would be ready for recommendation from P&Z or adoption by City Council till March. So there's that 3-month time span that there's certain points in time that the Freeze Nichols can make presentations. Staff will gear up so that we will be available and have those open houses that we always do when we adopt, and this is a major project. And then I'm going to use this as an opportunity to also say that since the council did approve a TAC, and you have both technical members and then also interested parties from neighborhoods, we're hoping that they'll be champions for this project and be able to explain the process that took place. Our intent is, before we even say this is a complete draft, have the TAC review it one time also, do that sweep and see if there's any issues that they have. And so there's intent that it just builds on itself and give those opportunities for people to understand. And then our hope is that through the TAC, through the initial review, that those points where there's something, this needs to be explained better, and then we can focus meetings on that as we go forward.
I really appreciate that. I think if you can do that, I think it'll go much smoother for us rather than, do it all in one time and have a couple of weeks. I've just not found that to be
Sure.
beneficial to us because we're all very busy and we want to give it the most attention that it deserves, because you've worked 3 years on it now, right? Or will be at that point. So I just want to be respectful of your time and the work, but I also ask that you be respectful of our time as well, because we're busy doing a lot of different things. And so next, my colleagues here have had a few questions on things like missing middle, reduction of administrative burden, those things. I think Councilor Bencomo spoke to, which I had written down already, and thanks for asking, Councilor Bencomo, the single home, right, kind of the trend in pushing to not have that, more specifically to have more multifamily, the duplex, triplex, those things. I get concerned that some of those things, some of those areas or topics aren't things that are being discussed, and I don't know how to present those things. I want this to be robust, a creative, innovative way of doing business. It's not sort of doing business as usual. And so how would you have these kinds of conversations amongst yourself to include the TAC, or how do you want us to do? I'm feeling like we're just looking at the document and maybe there's no or very little thought about some of these other things that might be difficult to bring forward, right? Because you might get a lot of pressure, or just the nature of sort of the topic, if you will. And so I just want to make sure that we're thinking broadly and differently about these things, and how am I rest assured that that's happening?
Mayor, excuse me, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, I'll give you some of my initial thoughts, and then Erica can add how they perceive it. I think one of the keys is one of the slides had the web page, and what we're doing is we get through a TAC review, we're putting those sections of the code up, so that's always a resource that the council could use to provide to individuals. All the TAC meetings themselves, they're generally the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 3 in the afternoon. They're open to the public, that you could, if you had an interested party, they could easily attend. The topic generally can be provided at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Their meetings are usually the fourth Tuesday of the month. We also generally schedule work sessions with them the second Tuesday of the month as needed, so we could always do an outreach for that also. At the point of time we get the draft done, again, we'll have those open houses and reaches, and staff can be flexible and provide additional outreach and engagement at that time. We can use some of the lessons we learned with Elevate and some of the outreach that we did. The city did a lot of outreach to the schools and opportunities at other public engagements that have taken place. So I just, off the top of my head, those are things that I know that we do on a regular basis.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem, what we could do is have a special work session on just this issue only, so we don't have the other, and we can just focus on that. But I just want to talk a little bit about the single family, to eliminating that. I would really be extremely cautious, councilors, on that. You want to put a stop to growth in Las Cruces, you take away single family zoning. And I mean, the biggest thing that we can look is possible annexation of certain lands, and then we can try to help reduce the costs so that developers can provide those more affordable homes. But I think it's fair to say, and I'm just going to, without putting Larry on the spot too much, I would think that the majority of his permits for new construction on residential are single-family houses.
Mayor, I'd just like to clarify, because I think you may be misunderstanding eliminate a single-use subdivisions. It's not eliminating them, it's ensuring that they're not the only thing that exists, so that subdivisions only made of single-family houses are no longer created, and that it's single-family houses and duplexes and apartment complexes, so that they're not only single-family.
Okay, well, I apologize, Councilor, but that's what a PUD is. We usually have a little bit of, we have a lot of single-family, some multifamily, some commercial, some, that's what we're kind of
Sure.
moving in that
I just
direction.
wanted to correct you that it's not eliminating single-family houses at
good.
all.
All
That's
right.
not what I meant by that.
Okay, good. Well, that takes care of that.
I actually do have another question, though.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Thank you. And this, again, maybe in the weeds a little bit, and again, please let me know if it doesn't fit here. But I'd wondered if you were having conversations about zoning restrictions and short-term rentals within this scope.
Yes.
Oh, that's an easy answer. Okay, you are having those conversations. Can you tell us more about what those look like?
Yes, we have some initial standards drafted. I don't recall what they are right off the top of my head, but as I mentioned in the zoning matrix that would say what's allowed where, and it has a set of conditional standards that may go with certain uses. Short-term rentals are one of those uses that would be specifically addressed.
Okay, and I just want to say that in the context of this conversation, for me, it's important because I think short-term rentals create displacement of a lot of communities. I think it creates affordability issues for a lot of local residents. I'm not saying we shouldn't have them. I think it's important to have zoning restrictions and strong regulations regarding short-term rentals so that again, the housing issue is a huge priority for this council. And so I just want to make sure that when those conversations are being had, that they're in the context of how do we ensure people are not being displaced and that home prices are not being driven up because of short-term rentals.
Thank you. That's a great comment. What some cities are doing in response to that is requiring that the owner live on site.
Yes.
So you can't have just empty houses that are being taken up waiting for an Airbnb occupant to come in. It's somebody who's renting out their extra bedroom or their accessory dwelling unit to help them afford their own mortgage. So from that standpoint, it can help with affordability, but from other standpoints, it can definitely hurt. So that's a great consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. I've just recently started doing some research of my own. Once I have something more formalized, I'll certainly bring it to our housing PRC for a conversation. But just want to make sure it was being had here. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from council? Is there more, Erica?
No, that is all I had for today. Thank you.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. Thank you much. Thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you.
So next, we're going to go ahead and go to the fiscal year 23-24 budget review. Leanne Demouche will be presenting. Looks like you brought your award-winning team with you.
I did, Mayor. Actually, Mayor, Council, I'm going to be starting off for this presentation. My name's Leanne Demouche. I'm your Finance Director. Almost forgot Christine, for the record. This is the City Manager's 2023-24 proposed budget. I would like to present to you our budget team. I'm very proud of them. We started off on a slow pace because we had some people that had left the city. But we've picked it up, and I think we caught up and hopefully are a little bit ahead. But I'd like to present our Budget and Grant Administrator, Jacqueline Rubacava, who you've already met. And then over here, we have Rocio Gamboa and Sherelle Dela Cruz. I would also like to thank, during this presentation, we have a couple of people coming up and presenting. So this is like a tag team today. So we're going to have a lot of fun. But in this tag team, we'll also have the CIP, which we have Ms. Cynthia Campo and Sherjana Baznet that will be presenting presenting, and then we also have our fleet administrator, Luis Vela, will be presenting on the vehicle acquisition. And then we also have great help this year from our HR team, which is Joe Richards, she's behind me, and JC Barilla, who are with our director and deputy director for HR. And I couldn't go without their management analyst, which is Melanie Tejas. She's not here, or maybe she's out in the audience, but she was a lot of help to the budget and all the HRs. So I just wanted to give that little kudos out to everyone, because we couldn't do it without them. And then, of course, we couldn't do it without our city manager. And we met with him multiple times, and we greatly appreciate Mr. Peely and his input and his direction during this. Gave us a lot of direction, and that really helped the budget team. And then, of course, Sonia and Barbara and Ikani, who's not here today. So, and all our department directors. So with that tag teaming, I'd also like to present to you, and I left her because she's the most magnificent, and that is Monica Torres, our economist, because economists rule the world, and I'd like to turn it over to her for our economic outlook for '24.
Good day. My name is, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Monica Torres, City Economist with Economic Development, and I'm going to give you a brief overview on the latest numbers on unemployment and ERT. Unemployment continues very low. The preliminary data for February unemployment rate dropped 1 percentage point as compared to pre-pandemic levels in February 2019 to reach 3.7%. There's about 1,796 persons actively looking for a job. That's 21% less than pre-pandemic levels and 13% less as compared to same month previous year. A measure of economic activity is the matched taxable gross receipts. During the collection process, taxable gross receipts are matched to tax payments. In this case, during the third quarter of fiscal year 23, there was a 9.7 increase as compared to previous year, same period. The sectors that contribute the most to the matched taxable gross receipts for the city are retail, trade, healthcare and social assistance, accommodation and food services, construction and other services. All the sectors together make 76.8% of the total industry's matched taxable gross receipts. That's a 2.3 percentage point increase as compared to previous year. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to the next presenter. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Jacqueline Rubalcava, Budget and Grant Administrator. So I'm going to present the FY 23-24 proposed budget. This year we went with the theme Cariño. This was a theme that came from Mr. Peely. And Cariño loosely translates to care and affection. So our budget book with the theme Cariño is to foster an environment where people have cariño for the things they do. And this year you'll see that there's, the budget book does feature many local art pieces throughout. And it also, helps us carry that theme, cariño. The different art pieces are local, so we're very excited for you all to see that. So these are the proposed budget summaries. This is a conservative budget, which means that it errs on the side of caution. So we're aiming to present a balanced budget. This year, there are no city GRT or property tax rate increases. And then throughout the budgeting process, we are aiming to meet the needs of the community. So this is done at every step. Each of the directors, department directors, work with their team to formulate a plan that is going to benefit the community, and that carries all the way up through city management decision-making and here presenting to council. And then we do adhere to the strategic plan initiatives, so we take into consideration Elevate Las Cruces and the council's strategic plan in all our decision-making. So some FY24 budget considerations. In salary and benefits, there are general wage increases, negotiated contracts, health insurance at 80 and 20%, and there is a slight increase. The open positions are budgeted at first quartile for 50% of the fiscal year, and the para increases 0.5% employer and employee. And for FY24, the city is requesting 59.1 new FTEs, which means full-time equivalent. This is the all fund expenditures. You'll notice that we have the different funds and the FY23 revised, and then we list our FY24 proposed. For the general fund, there is an increase of 10.3%. And then for a citywide total, there's a decrease of 8.5%. The larger increase or decreases you'll see at debt fund services, and that was due to paying down bonds. In a few weeks, there will be new bonds, so that debt fund services will change. As well as capital project funds, there was a 20.1% decrease, and that was due to closing out of projects, large projects such as the Go bonds and the community pool, which the Go bonds are about 13 million, and the community pool was about 18 million. The FY24 proposed city budget, the expenditures are about 510.3 million, and you'll see that most of it is 30% out of the general fund, 32% out of enterprises, and then it goes to capital projects at about 16%. Here we'll see that the general fund expenditures, again, they increased about 10.3% from FY23 to FY24. So that's 133.7 million to about 147.5 million. And here's a general fund summary, again with FY23 revised, and then showing the FY24 proposed. So you'll notice in the beginning balance an increase of 23.4%. Revenue stayed about the same, and then the expenditures did slightly increase at 10.3%. And we have the transfers 47% change, and the ending balance 16.6 with the 212s required gives us an unreserved balance of 11.5 for the proposed budget, and this is a 45.2% change. For HHGRT fund summary, again, here's the general fund FY23 revised and FY24 proposed. The beginning balances were respectively 7.3 and 10.5, and the ending and available balances at 7.3 for revised, and there was an increase to 8.9 proposed. And here's a breakdown of the general fund increase. These are changes from FY23. So for personnel, there was an increase of about 13 million. In operating, an increase of about 3.4 million. And in capital, a decrease of approximately 2.6 million. So that's a 13.8 million difference from the revised FY23 to the proposed FY24 budget. The decrease in capital was mostly due to the Loman properties, the landfill cleanup. And then from the previous slide, which was the personnel at 13 million, we broke down the 13 million to explain a little more the increase, which was the largest at 13 million. So here's the breakdown of how that increased. For FY24, the new positions, out of the 59.1 new positions, new FTEs requested, 52.85 are in the general fund, which totaled about 4.7 million. There was an increase due to the vacancies, and this was from FY23 to FY24 proposed. At 23, they were budgeted at entry level, as previously mentioned at 50%, and in 24, they were budgeted at first quartile at 50%. So that was a 2.9 million difference. And then 1.8 for the class and comp, and this was implemented during FY23, but was not budgeted that year. And then a 1.1% new positions and reclasses during the fiscal year. And these are new positions and reclasses that are requested throughout fiscal year 23. And then there's a projected 2.5 million for general wage increases. So that totals to our 13 million. So where your money comes from, again, largely it's due to gross receipt taxes. We see that's 79% of where our revenue sources come from. And then followed by property tax, cannabis, excise tax, franchise fees, and fees and charges. So here we have 138.7 million. And where your money goes. So our budget is largely, the largest expenditure is personnel at 69%. Our operating is at 28% and capital at 3%. So the total of that is about 147.5 million. And here's a breakdown for department budgets for FY24. And so the total general fund expenditures are approximately 147.5 million, and then you'll see a breakdown of what each department budget is going to look like. Sorry. And here's our fiscal agent support. We listed Metro, MRBDA, and Animal Services, and we listed their FY23 support and the projected FY24. So you'll notice that Metro stayed the same. MRBDA did increase from 2.2 million to about 2.4, and Animal Services increased from about 1.7 million to about a little over 2 million. Here are the listed general fund transfers. So you'll see that the largest here was debt at about 10.4 million, followed by the GRT street maintenance. And the GRT maintenance is the council did make a commitment at the 6.5 million, and that remained projected for FY24 as well, 6.5 million. We're continuing here showing the general fund transfers, and here's the total transfers of 34.3 million. So there is a larger transfer to transit this year. It's about almost $4 million, and that is due to last 2 years they did receive money from ARPA, and so we will need to have a higher transfer this year that they won't. These are the proposed new positions for FY24. Again, I mentioned it was 59.1. So by department, the city manager's office, these are the positions requested. CIP manager, airport operation and maintenance technician, custodians is 2. A lead planner, a transport plan project manager, administrative assistant, planning manager, and performance manager. Out of these, the only ones that required a vehicle were the 2 custodians. For community development, a senior planner, economic development, a case manager, and real estate services specialist. And for finance, a buyer, part-time, so you'll see the 0.5. For fire, a staffing specialist, an admin assistant, logistics specialist, fire inspector, EMS training specialist, and none of these required vehicles. So we'll move on. The last of the fire proposed positions is an EMS compliance officer. For human resources, it's a compliance, it should say specialist, it's compliance specialist, not officer. And for legal, 2 senior assistant city attorneys, 2 senior legal assistants, a safety specialist, parks and recreation, project manager, marketing and event coordinator, and a youth service administrator. No vehicles required for any of these. And then we have the parks and rec, which they are getting a recreation service coordinator. Police, there's going to be 18 new police officers with 18 vehicles required. I would like to mention that this will be funded through the retention fund received by the governor. And the community advocates, they'll get 2. For public works, 2 light equipment operators and 1 street maintenance worker. Quality of life, recreation services coordinator, they requested 2. Quality of life, we have 1 museum curator, a case manager, which requires a vehicle, volunteer assistant, library assistant 2, museum assistants, office assistants, and museum managers. Where you see, it might say like 0.25, 0.60, those may be due to reclasses. So if they're reclassed from part-time to full-time or part-time to a higher part-time, then that would be just a percentage of the 1. So that's a total of 59.1, and a total vehicles required with these new positions would be 22. At this time, I'd like to now introduce Luis Vela, Fleet Administrator, and he's going to talk about the vehicle acquisitions.
Good afternoon, Mayor Miyashima, Mayor Pro Tem Candela, members of the council. I hope you're having a beautiful day. For the record, I am Luis Vela, your city fleet manager, and I'm here to brief on the fiscal year 2024 vehicle acquisition fund. So our goal by resolution would be 50% of eligible vehicles need to be electric by 2030. So as you can see, fiscal year 23, we purchased 43 vehicles. There was 9 vehicles that were eligible to be electric, and we purchased 8. For fiscal year 2024, we have a huge order of 80 vehicles to be purchased. There is 18 eligible to be electric, and I have proposed 7. So that puts us right at about 48% for fiscal year 2024. Hybrids for 2023, we're in 19. And for 2024, I have 48 on the vehicle acquisition fund as far as hybrids. Hybrids are a little bit more easier to find, to buy. So that's why we're going with some hybrids. Other than that, is there any questions about the electric vehicles or anything like that? So as you can see, I know this is important to everybody, so we are putting a lot of cariño into this project, and we're all working very hard to get everything that we need for these vehicles.
I just want to ask two questions. Sorry, thank you so much. I know you know how important this is to us. In terms of transitioning your workforce into being able to, maintain these vehicles, how has that gone? I know we had some conversations early on about it being difficult, to contract with individuals that could train up. Where are you at with that particular area?
Mayor Pro Tem Candela, we are working with a company out of Arizona called Automotive Training Group.
Okay.
And they have sent 2 trainers already. I believe it was in October. We did a safety and familiarization initial, okay, this is the dangers and hazards of it. So it was a 2-day class. They will come down and train on anything that we have available. So as soon as these EVs start funneling in, there will be training on that particular, because they can't bring vehicles down here. It's just, they just bring, all their equipment and things like that, and they do the training here on site.
Okay, very good.
So we're moving along on that one.
Very good. Now, with the electric chargers, do we have sufficient, or is some of this funding that you're requesting going to be a part of purchasing the chargers sufficient to manage the number of fleet that you have here?
Mayor Pro Tem Candela, I am going to refer to our facilities manager on that one. I'm working the vehicle side of the house, and facilities manager is working the utilities and charger side of the house, so we're kind of working together, keeping each other up to date on everything.
Okay.
However, I'll let her speak on that if that's okay.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Thank you. She's making her way down.
Okay. Other than that, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Keep having a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Hello, Vanessa King for Facilities Management. Yes, so there's 6 locations where our EV chargers will be located throughout the city. We are Each location will have one dual port, so there'll be one port, and you'll be able to charge two vehicles on there. We are, sorry, just give me a minute.
It's okay.
I let
Take
my
your
nerves
time.
get the best of me right now.
No, it's okay. Take your time. You're doing good.
We are, yeah, that would be good. We're going to pull up a map just to show you guys where
Oh,
it's
sure,
at.
sure, sure. Very good. There you are. Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, so here's the map of the electric vehicle plan locations. There will be one at the fire station across the street. There will also be another one at LCPD. There'll be one here at City Hall. Thank you. And then there will be one over at the Hadley complex at the Castañeda building.
Okay.
And then there will be another one at the East Mesa Public Safety facility, and another one at the airport.
Okay.
And these locations were picked based off of current, where the vehicles would be
Located. or
located.
used? Okay.
Yes, used.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you for that. Those are all my questions, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to say Vanessa's been in this job a week and a half. Great job. Thanks, Vanessa. We put her on the spot. Let me go back to where we were. So Mayor Pro Tem Leanne Demush, Finance Director, it is now my turn. This is going to be on the Telshore Fund, just to give you an update. As you know, per resolution, we bring to council on an annual basis the Telshore Fund and how it's going. And as you can see, I wanted to sort of go back. Erica Hawkes, our treasurer, monitors over this along with myself. We have the State Investment Council, which currently back in June, as you can see, that's June of 22, we had about 30.1 million. Now we have about 30 million. Regular investments back then were about 4 million. Now we're at 5.8. As Mr. Peely can attest, we've been getting some really good investments lately. So we've been trying to do some regular investments. Leaving a little bit of cash in there just in case if we need to use that. We have about $1 million right there, and then so we have a total balance right now about 36.8 million, and that is as of March 31. For the budget for FY24, just a summary coming out of Housing and Neighborhood Services, the continuation of the Mano a Mano program, about $543,000. The Homeless Outreach Program is about $75,000. The Three Sisters Project is budgeted at $2.4 million. Most of these are carryovers, of course, not the Mano a Mano, but some of these are carryovers from last year. And then also for transit, the electric bus grant, that's also a match, and that's a carryover from the current year that we're in as well right now. So some of these are just carryovers because maybe like for instance, the electric buses just haven't come in yet, so we're just carrying them over to the next fiscal year. But we're budgeting and not, instead of bringing a carryover in the beginning of the new year. This is the other side of the Telsure Fund, which we call the healthcare services. This is where the Housing and Neighborhood Services has their nonprofits. Remember, every year, Ms. Green brings to you a resolution. Council approved to budget about $600,000 every year. So these are the nonprofits that she monitors or she takes care of. So that's $600,000 there. We do have, this is also a carryover, Casa de Peregrinos for the 2.8. And then we did have some funding in there that was not used in FY23. It was approved, and they've asked for a carryover, and that is for quality of life, their senior recreation. This is for senior satisfaction and mental health survey. And that was from this current year that we're in, but it looks like they're not going to have it spent, so they are asking to carry it over for '24. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Shirjana for the capital improvement program.
Thank you, Leanne. Mr. Mayor, City Council, Shirjana, Basnet City Innovation Strategy Manager. So I'm going to provide you all with just a quick, brief overview of the CIP process. As you all are mostly familiar already, we've had sort of a hybrid process this year. The CIP has gone through a few fundamental changes. We kept the current process intact as far as timelines go. However, some of the elements that did change were intended to elevate the CIP process, pun intended. So we did start with maybe about a little over 6 months ago, having our actual CIP analyst start assessing the CIP database, getting the ICIP, which would be the legislative process, to try and sync a little bit better with our capital improvement planning process. We did have a community workshop last year for the FY24 CIP and FY23 capital improvement, capital outlay process, which it was in partnership with the grants department. And then we did sort of kick off the new process in November of 2022. Had quite a few project submissions this year. Then we had a slightly different strategy on going after legislative appropriations. We, of course, brought before the City Council the bond acceptance for the SSJRT in February, and that is where you all saw a little bit of a different strategy for how we're going to start using that bond money. The CIP retreat introduced a little bit more of the changes that we are proposing to make, and with Council's support, we are moving on, and we will have some of the actual projects discussed today. So did want to maybe just do a quick recap of the strategy change for SSGRT this bond cycle. We were focusing on three sort of broad project categories, if you will: quality of life projects, maintenance projects, and then active transportation. These projects are intended to be reflective of policies that we have in place that our City Council adopted, and also refocusing, as you may recall through the CIP retreat conversation, refocusing or focusing a little bit more on what we have as opposed to building new just all the time. And so you'll see here three sort of broad categories or project types, if you will. Quality of life, that would be the East Mesa Recreational Complex, where a certain portion, $2 million, is going to be dedicated or allocated in order to complete out what was previously referred to as Phase 1 of the GO bond for East Mesa Rec Complex. And in terms of kind of maintaining that equitable distribution, I was going to say of wealth, but you know what I mean. Mearshite Recreation Center is our kind of central and only major rec complex in the city, and so a remodel expansion to to the same amount of $2 million would also be proposed to be funded through this year's CIP. We have active transportation projects identified. So this goes back to kind of understanding that the CIP is not only just an allocation of funding, it's also our major planning tool for planning for the next 5 years of unfunded projects. And so we've begun to identify complete streets projects kind of going along with City Council's direction in adopting that ordinance itself. And then, of course, maintenance projects where we've, in discussion with facilities and several of our city departments, there are certain roof replacements that are overdue. And so the roof replacement program within facilities management is going to also get funded this year. And the reason why they're listed as such is because we do have other roofs that required funding, but just earlier on, you all witnessed that through TID, and so there are other revenues that are coming in through legislative appropriation as well that we're anticipating. And that's why these ones, kind of going down the list of priorities, were the ones that we could fund through SSGRT. You have seen this document before, and I will just very quickly go over how we read this CIP document. We have our list of projects with the project titles. Currently, they are still listed in order of departments for the most part. However, I'll briefly introduce a few of the incremental changes we've done this year. The first column is going to be the funded amounts you see for FY24, the proposed funding. And then we have 5 years of unfunded infrastructure capital projects. We do have a funding source column identified as required by the city charter and our financial procedures code. The only thing I'll mention here is the bolded text is what is actually funding the project, whereas everything else identified is a potential funding source. And then just to note that because we are pending the actual appropriations from the state legislator, we do show that in the second column, FY25 of unfunded. Once we receive the appropriations, we would move it over to the funded column, bring it back to City Council for adoption. So these are a few of the incremental, but I would say significant changes this year to the CIP document. And so as we're moving towards more of the unsiloing of projects and looking at umbrella buckets, if you will, that further the City Council's vision and the community's adopted comprehensive plan, we identified a few of these project buckets. So complete streets is going to be a project type in the CIP this year, under which we have some streets identified that per recent conversations and policies this council has adopted, and also past planning, especially our comprehensive plan, which we are required per city charter to demonstrate a relationship to with the CIP. We've listed out a few of these projects. The way that this bucket will function is like, for example, an annual project bucket under Public Works, where we have annual projects identified, but they're not necessarily all funded or all carried out within that particular fiscal year. So it's just ongoing projects. Active transportation is also a bucket that was created this year, and the intent behind it is to demonstrate and directly fund bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements. that we do have a couple of line items already in our current CIP document that are identified. ADA and sidewalk gaps are two of those line items that are going to get moved into pedestrian safety improvements. And that way, we are trying to enhance kind of the project prioritization as well as tracking in the future. We are also introducing a new bucket, resiliency. And so this will contain sustainability and stormwater / green infrastructure type projects. In some cases, we experience sort of lack of funding to enhance some of our street projects or other facilities that we are funding or constructing. And so this line item will help identify that funding as well as give us a story to tell when we go after other funding through grants or state funds. And with that, I will hand over to Cynthia Campo, our CIP analyst, who will run through some of the financials for you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, councilors. Cynthia Campo, CIP analyst. Our proposed CIP budget for FY24 is $157.6 million. Of that, 35% of it comes from bonds, 29% of it is from grants, 28% from taxes, 5% from other, and 3% from fees. And those are the actual dollar amounts. And this is our FY23 versus FY24 funded amounts per category. That was one of the things that we introduced this year in the CIP process, the categories. So the funded actually includes the carryovers, the annual projects, and newly funded. And so you can kind of see the trend and the comparison between the 2 years of what will be funded for FY24. This one is actual count of projects. We have 7 newly funded projects, and those are the bright pink on top. The lavender is annual and carryovers, and then the darker purple is unfunded. And we had a total of, let me look, 282 projects that were submitted, and of that, 139 are funded. This is one of our newly funded projects, and I believe we've heard of this one earlier today. This is the downtown video surveillance cameras for $100,000, and then this is a combination of the TID funded roof replacements and the SSGRT funded roof replacements. And we had also discussed in the SSGRT discussion the Mearshide Recreation Center, the $2 million funded by SSGRT, and Complete Streets. The Museum Systems Technology Improvement is also funded by TID for $210,000. We have the fire station alerting system funded through taxes for the fire departments. Fire training tower of the total amount needed is the $219,000. Of that, $99,000 has been identified as funded. We also have wastewater. I don't know if you pronounce it. Oh, you do? Okay, so there we go. This is actually backwards. The amount needed is the $496,000, and we have 96,000 approved. And then water development, 163,000 has been approved and 1.6 million is needed.
Hi, Jacqueline Rubalcava again. So before we continue, some of the other JPAs were able to present on the first budget work session. So Animal Services does have a presentation. So I'd like to introduce Barbara De Leon, Chief Administrative Officer, and she'll be presenting the Animal Services proposed FY24 budget.
Good afternoon. Barbara De Leon, Chief Administrative Officer for the record, and I'm here to present the proposed Animal Service Center FY24 budget because Clint is out of town or attending to a family emergency, so I'm here in his place. I'm a fairly new board member, ex officio board member, and also the chair of the Animal Service Center Finance Committee. So what I'll do is go over the budget that was recommended by the board of the Animal Services Center. If there are any questions that I can't field because they're more operational in nature, I'm going to just make note of them so that we can circle back with you after I've had a chance to visit with with Animal Services Center staff. So some of the considerations in developing the Animal Service Center budget included any wage increases. The board gave guidance to the Animal Service Center to ensure that all of their positions were at a level of at least $15 an hour. So we did make some changes to some positions for that purpose. The Animal Service Center used guidance from the city about any increases in the health and dental benefits, and of course utilized appropriate calculations for FICA, PARA, et cetera. The Animal Service Center did have some increases that were related to some of their insurance premiums. And then finally, the Animal Service Center was given direction by the board to include funding for the community cat program. And we'll go over that in particular and what that looks like within the budget. In FY24, you'll see in the yellow column the proposed budget that the Animal Service Center brought forward. Compared to the FY23 budget, there is an increase of over $600,000 to the budget, primarily due to salaries and wages, as well as some benefits and the community cat program. There were some decreases in expenditures related to some capital projects. I mentioned the community cat program. That's expenditures that are currently in the FY24 proposed budget. That includes some outreach, surgeries, a crisis fund. There was previously one resource allocated to the community cat program. That position was already budgeted and filled by the Animal Service Center, so that's not included here. These are the incremental expenditures that were included with the FY24 proposed budget. There are a lot of numbers on this slide. There's some line items for some of the services that the Animal Service Center charges for. Notably, you'll see that pet licenses were removed as their Animal Service Center no longer charging for that. Other shelter services and fees collected for the shelter include impound fees, boarding fees, microchip fees, adoption fees, and those are reflected here. I'm going to draw your attention, if I can get this little pointer going here, to the city and county contributions to the Animal Service Center. In FY23, Each entity was contributing $1.75 million. In FY24, the request and the recommendation from the board is that the both contributions from the city and the county increase almost 18% to a new level of $2.060 million, so that the total contribution from city and county is now the just over $4 million for the budget. And I believe that concludes the presentation on the proposed budget for the Animal Service Center. You saw the amount on the previous slide for the city's contribution reflected in the city's proposed FY24 budget. So we have already included that as a line item, and of course, it's not approved until the council, this comes before council on May 15th, but just wanted to let you know that we'd already taken into account. Of course, any other guidance is welcome, but with that, I'll stand for any questions that I may be able to answer or log for the Animal Service Center staff.
No, that was a great job, Barbara. Very versatile. Questions?
Oh, I have a
Councilor Coran.
general question, and it may be too specific.
That's okay.
The community cap program, which is something that our council has heard a lot about, and I think hence the inclusion in the budget presentation. I appreciate that. And I know that there's already someone, I think on board you mentioned, who's doing this coordination. Sorry. I'm just curious, the amount that's allocated, part of this big conversation is about spay and neuter surgery and spay and neuter capacity. I think that the amount that's allocated, I think that was slide 3, I think. Perhaps 4, yeah, sorry, thank you. Is this assuming an increase in capacity related to increased vet services? Is this assuming community projects? What are the assumptions that go into this? And I ask it because this is a specific example of this, but I also wonder, I think we are committed to both the community cap program, but collectively committed to increasing capacity in any ways that we can for community access to spaying and neutering to ultimately put the animal shelter out of business, ideally. But until then, can you comment on that? Do you know what those assumptions are? Or if you might be able to follow up with Clint and find out exactly what that is, that would be very helpful. Thank you. And I'm not saying we shouldn't fund it. I'm just saying I'm curious if it means we've really struggled to hire a vet, and that's a challenge that I think I would be curious to know how that's, what the assumptions are guiding that in our thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilor Coran. Yes, I will definitely make note of this so I can find out if there's what the underlying assumptions are. I know that with respect to the dollars for the vacant positions, we have assumed that we will be able to fill those vacant positions, but I don't have the volumetric data with respect to the number of surgeries we're expecting and how that compares to current levels, et cetera. So I will get that for the mayor and council and forward that back to you all.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Coran, around the Easter holiday, Clint made mention that there is a veterinarian that has come forward. And it's in the queue somewhere, and they have high hopes for this individual. So if that happens, that will definitely increase the number of surgeries that will be done, and what we've always envisioned would happen as the new center came on, and moving into the old center with surgeries specifically. So I'm hopeful. I've talked to Mr. Peely about just keeping track of it through HR and trying to move that expeditiously through, because it really is going to make a difference for us in our community. I hope that was helpful.
Anybody else? Councilor Flores.
So, Barbara, thank you. Ms. DeLeon, thank you so much for pinch hitting for Clint. But just, I think this is something that you could possibly answer. So the proposed cost for spay-neuter surgeries are almost $100,000. And is there any projection as to what the cost would be once we do have the old building used exclusively for spay neuter? Is there any ballpark number that you are aware of? I wouldn't expect it since you're a new member and all that, but.
That's all right. Mayor and Councilor Flores, thank you very much. Are you asking for the costs once we start utilizing the facility of
Correct.
spay and neuter services?
Yes.
Or the cost of operating that facility as a medical?
Well, both, I guess. And I guess this is only for the surgeries and not necessarily for the cost of the operating the building. Is that a different category?
I believe that would be a different category, so I will make note for both the operating costs for the old facility as it converts to the purpose of being a medical facility, as well as any impact on the cost for the spay and neuter surgeries.
And in review of the proposed budget, did we cover this? Do you know whether we covered that at the last board meeting?
No.
The one on Good Friday, when I was praying for more money. Okay.
Mayor and Councilor Flores, we did not specifically talk about the cost of that new medical facility or the spay and neuter surgeries.
So is there, okay. So we'll talk about allocations and all that and revisions. Thank you so much, Ms. DeLeon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? Was that your presentation, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Is this your phone?
Hi again, Jacqueline Rubalcava. So we'll talk about the next steps. So we will be finalizing the budget. This is a working budget. It's a live budget that's changing. So before the public hearing and before the adoption, we will still be making some slight changes as needs are seen and evaluated. We do have a public hearing on May 4th, and then the City Council budget adoption on May 15th. And then the budget does need to be submitted to NMDFA by June 1st. Okay, well, thank you. We will now open to any questions or discussion.
Councilor Ben-Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all so much. I just have very few questions, and I think that's really a testament to you all and the process that has gotten us here with the retreat and the subsequent work sessions. I really appreciate all of the work that you all have done. I think this process really works. Just a couple questions on staffing. I wasn't sure what a safety specialist with legal was, and I'm hoping you can provide more details. Safety specialist.
So I will defer to, if anyone's in the audience or wants to answer for legal, I will defer that question.
Council and Councilor Ben-Coleman, the safety specialists work in risk management and basically work to mitigate risk throughout the city. So following up with any complaints, from anything going on in parks, for example, like if there's a pothole or if there's a wire that's loose, any kind of safety issue.
Wow, okay, awesome, thank you. And then I think it may have been on page 28 and 29, but I did note that I know housing staff had asked for additional staff or at least more funding to, for the staff that gets paid through federal grants. Natalie can describe that better. However, I wasn't sure if I saw that person. And then I thought maybe 28, 29, because you did include some new staff under the city manager's office.
So Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Bencomo, since the housing is actually moving out of economic development into the city manager's office, there is, I think, an MA that's moving over, and also the new position for the administrative assistant will be helping out in that program as well.
Okay. So this case manager under economic development,
that is a totally different, that was actually a position in economic development that I think Mr. Peely had asked for. I don't think it's related with housing. If Mr. Peely.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman Como, this is the position that we put in sort of as a placeholder to discuss. We talked about someone that can help us with our social work. We didn't name it social worker. We use it case manager. We're still in discussion of how this position is going to be formed, but we wanted to plug it in there. But that does come under housing, neighborhood services.
okay. I just want to make sure that housing got the staff request that they were wanting.
Yes.
And yes, okay, thank you. And then on page 29, I was going to wait to bring this up at the next council meeting during my council comments, but I think it fits well here. I just spoke with EFO on Friday, and with Natalie and with Community of Hope about a possible expansion to the Mano y Mano program for outreach, and doing it in the model of Mano y Mano, that Community of Hope with this additional funding would hire and pay their clients, Community of Hope clients, so it would be a peer-to-peer program to do outreach for people experiencing homelessness. And I've been talking to Nicole about this for a really long time, since Mayor Pro Tem and I were talking about the faith community, but volunteers would prove too difficult. And just last week I mentioned to Nicole that I wondered what it would look like to do a similar Mano y Mano program, except for outreach and pay people. And she was very open to that idea. I think EFO was open to that idea. I, of course, don't want to speak for him, but I think enhancing the Mano y Mano program to do outreach peer-to-peer, I think would be really beneficial for us right now. And so I don't have a specific number in mind. Obviously, I know that we pay folks at least the minimum wage for Mano y Mano, which I think is $12 an hour. And so just, I think working with, I would really like to see it included in this fiscal year round as a pilot program. And of course, I think the folks that would know that number best would be Nicole and Natalie. But that is something I wanted to raise now that I think feels like appropriate to do so here.
So, Mayor and Councilor Bencomo, what we'll do is we have a week or a little bit more to finalize the total budget. So we'll work with Mr. Peely to come up with a number for that pilot program, and Natalie as well.
Thank you. And I understand there's also amendment processes that can happen, right? If it doesn't work within the timeline. I understand that's a really big ask, Leanne, and it's very in the weeds type of programming, and so I understand if it doesn't happen immediately, but I just did want to make sure and raise it today, that is something I wanted to advocate for.
And Mayor and Councilor Bencomo, please always remember that at any time, if needed, Mr. Peely knows this, and so does the city management, we can always bring a resolution for particular programs like this, and if it has a budget associated with it, we can bring that forward at any time.
Yeah, so I don't want to, I know this is like by law has to be turned in by a certain date, which is coming up pretty soon. So I do understand if it doesn't happen, but I wanted to make sure to put it on your radar.
Yes, ma'am, we will put it on our radar.
And then my last question was around the CIP projects that I know this year our city manager got called up to the state legislature to really ask about, hey, there's all this money that has gone unused. I'm just wondering how we're continuing to approach CIP funds from the legislature and I know it's not city projects, it's generally mostly our partners, but really wondering if there's a plan on, how to push them to use that money.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Bencomo, I actually don't have an answer for you today, but this would be part of what we're partnering with the grants department and kind of overviewing and helping assist with. But I would defer to Leanne and maybe grants on how they're going to go about the capital outlay process.
Thank you.
Mayor, Councilor Bencomo, while Leanne's getting ready, just clarification on the question. Councilor Bencomo, could you ask that again?
Ifo, I know that that the city has some legislative dollars that have not been used. And I know it's not city projects, that it was mostly our partners, right? That you got called up to the legislature to sort of testify on. I'm just wondering what the plan is for ensuring those dollars get used for what they were intended for.
Yeah, so one thing that we did this year, and Barbara and her team and Leanne have done a great job of actually identifying and making that response. So right now we have a list of those that need to be spent. We've talked about having a committee. I know Sonia brought this up about having a committee that they meet, just like when you meet with, when we look at capital projects relative to our bonds, we can have a committee that would meet often to look through those. I think really just keeping an eye on it a little more closely than we have in the past. But Leanne, did you have something to add, or Barbara, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much, Barbara DeLeon, for the record. And I'll defer to Sonia as well, because Sonia and I have actually been discussing how to track and report on all of our projects that have some sort of time constraint associated with them with respect to funding, and then keeping track of allowable uses as well. It's not just grants, it's also bonds that we have funds with a certain amount of time period in order to spend them, as well as capital outlay. So that spans quite a few capital projects, and we've talked about actually Shirjan and her team having the lead to help us track and review those at least quarterly, so that we can ensure that we are allocating the resources needed to keep those projects going and keep them on track. And so that is in the works.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Those are all my questions, Leanne. Thank you. And thanks to your team.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thanks, Leanne.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate your time.
All right. So that takes care of the, where am I, in the financial part. So now we're going to go to the resiliency strategies for the franchise fee agreement. Lisa LaRocque.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City Management, and anyone else who's out there. My name is Lisa LaRocque. I'm the Sustainability Officer for the City of Las Cruces, and I'm here today to talk about a proposed idea I have from the Sustainability Office. So in December of 2022, the Finance Department shared an update to the Council on renewing the El Paso Electric franchise fee agreement from 2% to 3%. And the mayor has mentioned using this additional funding to weatherize low and moderate income housing. So today, I would like to share a program idea of this nature to see what it would look like from a sustainable and climate lens. And to be clear, this franchise fee agreement is a separate action that's between El Paso Electric and the city. And this presentation is about how we use the funds internally and is not part of the agreement at all. So let me move forward. So this work has been described as climate resilience. And part of that work has to do with mitigation or reducing greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere with clean and efficient technologies. The other step is to include adapting to the impacts of climate change with systems that can withstand extreme weather events like heat, wind, drought, or floods. It's said that we prepare for these events and that we can bounce back more easily. But this approach is missing a step because it ignores the distinctive needs of the frontline communities, those low and moderate income communities that are impacted first and most. So the approach that I'm proposing is that we refer to our program as community climate resilience, where in addition to mitigation and adaptation that I just described, is that we include deep democracy, where the community is included and empowered to co-create the strategies needed for resiliency. And in this scenario, the community defines how the community can bounce forward as we implement needed strategies. And our goal is to eliminate inequities in addition to unsustainable resource uses. So there are 4 critical areas that we propose to work in, and we need to work concurrently to put the frontline communities front and center. And these areas include construction retrofits, organization and outreach, finance, and workforce development. And we have collected best practices in all these areas to guide and inspire co-creation with the community. So to begin with, I'd like to describe some of the inequities that our neighborhoods are facing and our initial steps to learn more. Older areas are not benefiting from current practices in building or infrastructure. I think we've heard that several times today. 78% of the low and moderate income residents that live in houses that were built before 1980 have a high energy burden, meaning that they pay over 6% of their income on energy bills alone. With turnover of residents, one survey determined that only 29% of people knew more than 2 of their neighbors who they could call for help. Or conversely, 71% of the neighborhood only knew 1 or no people that they could rely on. The amount of concrete and asphalt increases urban heat in the low and moderate income neighborhoods by more than 10 degrees Fahrenheit, making evaporative coolers systems less effective. And our tree canopy throughout the city is only 4% and doesn't support many of the neighborhoods in the infill area. So we have worked on creating a mapping tool to examine the scale and the interrelationships of these issues that our communities face. And many of the statistics that you will hear today in the presentation are from that. So to address the structural inequities, we hope to develop a scalable model for making the low and moderate income houses more resilient to heat, stranded assets, and energy burdens. And we're proposing to increase thermal comfort throughout the year with high-efficiency heat pumps that provide heating and cooling, shift to more electric systems, and reduce energy burdens. Before I continue, I really want to say publicly to recognize that there's many programs that are already doing amazing work, such as the city's housing program, Tierra del Sol, Mesilla Valley Housing Authority, Habitat for Humanity, Mortgage Finance Authority, and El Paso Electric. However, I think everyone realizes that there are limited resources to address root issues and scalability. For example, with the LIHEAP program, the Low Income Housing Energy Assistance Program, we get $1.5 million from the federal government, and EPE in the city throw in another $500,000. But if we were to, but that only addresses 40% of the low and moderate income people that are energy burdened, and that we would need an additional $3 million to be able to address those needs. And it's a short-term Band-Aid and not really what we're looking for. There's also issues with paperwork requirements that can make it really onerous for applicants to some programs, and there's outdated state energy efficiency acts and stakeholder obligations that dampen the motivation to do more. The sustainability's entry into this work is driven by concerns for the community's climate resilience needs, and the availability of federal funds, and our interest in co-creating programs that bounce residents forward in this unprecedented time when urgency and resources align. So we feel that this is a special opportunity where we are following all of the energy efficiency rebates that are coming out and tax credits, and trying to do this in a way that will mitigate some of the problems that we've seen in this housing. So in this collective effort, we want to help shift power to build trust and look at dismantling systems that have perpetuated these inequities. It's not sustainability's aspiration to become another organization that will retrofit houses by itself. It's looking instead to work in partnership. We want to work with the community to remove barriers and increase benefits with them as drivers of this initiative. We are already working with 25 people in a planning group to help guide this. In the absence of low and moderate income energy rates that would pay a more of a proportionate amount, and larger programs and resources to date, we find that there's a lot of problems. One of them is that there's 9,500 people, residents, households, that pay over 8.9% of their income on energy bills right now. And of these energy-burdened individuals, 2/3 of them average at least 37% of their income on mortgage or rent. And in some neighborhoods, it can reach over 50%. And as a first step, sustainability has taken a deep dive researching available rebates and tax credits. Several of you have already heard presentations that we've done. And we have also analyzed technologies and life cycle costs to ensure affordability to help determine the most viable options. All of these residents in these neighborhoods that I've described today are eligible for the largest allocations of the Inflation Reduction Act rebates and tax credits. And all of these can be bundled with current state and local programs, but they don't cover everything. So our collective challenge is keeping community climate resilience as our target and find financial models that address the unmet financial needs. Because of the compounding factors of older housing, limited services, and financial burdens, we have maintained a cycle of poverty, and we become forced to react to several of the problems as opposed to preventing them. And when residents are the recipients of services, not the drivers, we risk missing important elements. This is where we see community climate resiliency as an opportunity to examine workforce readiness and different models that could support its development to better position residents in the energy transition. By partnering and supporting workforce developments, we hope to break the poverty cycle, to provide more disposable income. It's kind of an ironic choice of words, and to increase equity in homes because of the improvements that we made. And what we're suggesting is 4 different elements if we were able to garner some of the funds that come from this new revenue source. We would like to add an additional staff person. That would be represent about 11% of the monies coming in, and that those monies are changing all the time, but it's about $700,000 or $800,000. We would also like to train community advocates to support residents with navigating technical services and rebates. It sounds like Councilor Bencomo and I are on the same vein with that, and in a different capacity, but still. And then third, we want to coordinate with the construction managers to implement a scalable low and moderate income retrofit program that concentrates on thermal comfort and on reducing energy burdens and moving towards electrification. And lastly, we'd like to develop partnerships that advance energy workforce opportunities. And as I described earlier, these all represent a percentage of the EPE franchise fee agreement. And again, these would be separate decisions that would be made internally and not as a part of the agreement. So the outcomes we're looking at is we're looking at greater access to Inflation Reduction Act dollars, higher equity in the houses, lower utility bills, workforce opportunities. We want thermal comfort with weatherization and heat pumps, and we want to reduce greenhouse gases with electric appliances and pairing it with community solar. So that is the idea that we would like to put forward, and as we get to that position when the franchise fee is agreed upon, it is there in your head to think about. Thank you very much.
So Lisa, I'm going to go first this time. I'm going to ask you some questions, please.
Okay.
So can you go back to where you went with the different breakdowns, please?
Sure.
Right there. So what amount are you thinking the total amount is this 1% would raise, approximately?
About $700,000 to $800,000. It varies every year.
Okay, so I want to focus on number 3, 67%. So that's roughly, I don't know, just say $450,000. And let me just begin by saying, I don't like franchise fees. I don't like charging them, but it's a necessity. Right now it's 2%, and I really had a hard time. But I felt that if we could would I be willing to go 1% more to support it, to allow those in the lower income brackets to save on weather stripping, just general basic things that would keep the hot weather, the hot air going out or cold air going out in various different seasons. And I thought, okay, if it's going to cost the ratepayers an extra $4 or $5 a month, but it could save them in their houses $30, $40 a month, I was okay with that. So, what would you spend that $450,000 on? It's very vague. I appreciate the presentation, but I don't know what exactly, because when the rates go up, and council and myself start fielding questions, so why did you raise my rates? Things are going up as it is, and what exactly how am I gonna benefit from it? That's what they're gonna ask, and what are we gonna say? What is that $450,000 gonna be spent on?
Mayor,
the retrofit program, excuse me.
Thank you. Mayor, what we're trying to do is to address a larger issue that is facing the low and moderate income communities. One is that they have an extreme energy burden that is disproportionate to the amount that the rest of us pay. The average for the rest of the city is about 3%, and what low and moderate income residents pay is about 7 or 8%, and what energy burden people pay is 10 to 11% of their income. So our goal is to bring down the energy burden to a reasonable amount, below 6%. And that can't be done by just weather stripping or simple actions like that. And then the other thing that we're addressing that would require more insulation, perhaps window replacement because they have single pane windows. And the other thing that is necessary is dealing with thermal comfort. And when I talk about thermal comfort, what I mean is that there is about 70% of the low and moderate income people rely on evaporative cooling. And when you rely on evaporative cooling and have a poorly sealed house, you're really not effective. And you do it during the hottest time of the summer, during the monsoon season with the humidity. You can only drop your temperatures by 10, and if you're lucky, 15 degrees. And because the inside of the infill area in particular is 10 degrees hotter, it's 110 degrees during the hottest part of the summer. So we're talking about reducing people's cooling to 95 day and night, and that is a safety risk. So our goal is not modest. Our goal is to provide a safe home for low and moderate income and a affordable bill to be able to spend their time on and resources on other things.
So, okay, Lisa, I guess just to be more candid here. So a heat pump, I thought I heard you talk about a heat pump and AC and heat pump. On the average costs $3,000, the small ones. To install it, another couple grand, if we're lucky. So you're talking $5,000 to install a heat pump and an AC pump. You take the 450,000 divided by 5, that's like 90 heat pumps. And to do it citywide, to increase our fees to, I understand about an additional staff person. And I know I talked about this. I have other ways of where we can save the money to make sure you're staffed. And I'll talk with Ifo about it later because I don't want to say it right now and it's not on the agenda. But if that's what you were talking about, heat pumps and AC pumps, that's not a whole lot of people. There's that's what I was envisioning was, and I know that didn't El Paso Electric didn't they provide some information a few weeks ago to, I forgot which one it was it transportation and housing? Yeah, and some of this, I don't know if we can partner with them on, but I wanted to kind of focus in exactly what that money would be used for. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I didn't hear anything specific.
Mayor, the heat pump is more expensive than $3,000. A heat pump provides both cooling and heating. The rebate, it can be $12,000, but it is a very efficient system that is a quarter of the cost of running an air conditioning or a heating unit. So in the end, the cost to the homeowner in the terms of their utility bill is also reduced. So what we're trying to do is to create a radical change in the quality of life in the homes for these community members who can be exposed to health risks during extreme heat events. and are paying a disproportionate amount of their income. So I feel like the approach that I'm describing is more ambitious than what you were anticipating, but I hope that under this unprecedented time when we have so much funding available from the IRA and can tap into the construction industry or develop new construction industry workforce, that this will be an opportunity to have this community, as I've described, bounce forward and benefit greatly from this, and not always having to catch up or to make tough decisions. So the approach that we're using is very comprehensive and ambitious.
Okay, I'm just a little bit confused here, but let's start off with what exactly is your wording for FFA?
I'm sorry?
FFA?
It's the franchise fee agreement, Mayor.
Okay, so when you said about, you were referring to other monies that are available, were you going to commingle this with these other funds?
Well, Mayor, you described that El Paso Electric helps. I believe that they provide $300 for a rebate for a franchise, for a heat pump. So that's a small dip into the needed money.
Okay, so are you saying then number 3 is primarily heat pumps and not weather stripping?
Mayor, I'm talking about weatherization for sure. That is the fundamental step that needs to be taken in housing, especially with the insulation in the homes, caulking, two-pane windows are minimum for what is needed. But in addition to that, there's a need for a reliable heating and cooling system through what is advocated for in as the best method is heat pumps.
Do you know approximately what percentage of people that you're referring to, the low to moderate income, what the numbers are in Las Cruces that would qualify?
For the Inflation Reduction Act funds, or for having their heat pump replaced?
Well, the ones that you were referring to earlier when you were starting off.
Mayor, there's 13,500 people that are low and moderate income, and there are 9,500 households that are have high energy burdens.
So we would basically be serving 1%. If it's 9,500 households and we were able to do 90 put on 90 heat pumps for the 450,000?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm confused.
Okay, so there's roughly 9,500 households, you told me, that would qualify? And if the money that we're looking to do would only be for around 90 heat pumps, give or take, how many heat pumps do you think 450,000 would purchase?
I'm sorry, Mayor. I'm trying to catch up. I mean, ask me the question again, please.
Yeah, sure. No. So if we're using 67% of the franchise agreement money, which earlier we think that the whole amount is 700,000, so 67% of that, I just guess, is 450. I didn't put the calculations. Of the 450,000, how many heat pumps on residences do you think that would cover? 450,000.
I think it would cover about 450,000 would probably cover about 10 to 15,000 homes. I'm not sure, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not doing this well in my head. Mayor, part of the reason that I haven't come forward with a specific budget is because I'm trying to honor the idea that this is being co-created with the community. So whether we do a intense job with a few houses or we do a modest job with more houses is up to the community to decide. Whether we hire a contractor or whether we train those community members themselves is something that the community will have input in. So I haven't done a budget. I can tell you that it costs about $30,000 to do a complete retrofit to a house that includes the heat pump and all electric appliances and weatherization. Now, I don't know if all of those houses will need that, but that is the total figure for those houses. And this was meant to be a revolving fund that we could use to be able to continue reaching out to more and more houses.
Okay, so what I did, I hear you, and I know it's late in the day and sometimes, okay. So I just used a very, very minimal amount of $5,000 for a heat pump. And I divided that into 450,000 and I came up with 90. 90 divided by 9,500 households is less than 1%. 1% of all the houses of the low to medium income people, 1%, 1 out of 100 is going to get this. And that's where I'm going to have a hard time saying, well, which of the 1 of the 100 gets it? So I think we're making a little headway that we want to try to reduce and help our lower income residents save money. But I don't know if using all of this on just 1% of the residents.
So, okay, I'm with you now.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have a different number of households, but one of the things is that this money is not, I'm not buying the total, we're not using this money to buy the total costs. We're using this money in conjunction with the Inflation Reduction Act. So to go back to that example of that it costs $25,000 up to $31,000 to retrofit a house. The only thing that we would need to retrofit a total house would be $6,000, the delta, because the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act rebates and tax credits and other sources of money from El Paso Electric, from the state, and from MFA can contribute to that money. So we're not doing 1%, we're using this money to bridge the financial needs of the people. So we feel that the money that exists from all of those different tax credits and rebates and other programs and other partnerships can provide the lion's share of this. That money is just to cover the delta, the amount that is still missing.
Okay. And I think I heard you say 6,000. Give or take.
Yeah, that's if we go the whole way.
Well, I thought you said that the full was like 30,000, and then with the IRA money, or would be another 25, and so that.
No, okay, so, I'm sorry. It would cost about $31,000 to do a complete retrofit.
Correct.
No one has decided that they're gonna do every piece of the retrofit, like a new heat pump water heater, or a heat pump dryer, or those sorts of extra amenities. But certainly a heat pump, heater and cooler would be in there, as would weatherization, as a minimum.
Right. Okay.
That was in there. But if you did it all, it would be about $30,000, and with the rebates, you would still need about $6,000 more to finish the job.
Okay, right, I got you. And so but I used 5,000.
Okay.
So I took the 5,000 into the 450,000, and that left me with 90 units, 90 widgets, whatever.
And Mayor, this is not something I'm asking for 1 year. This is something I'm asking for several years until a program is established and runs on its own from nonprofit centers or other entities that have adopted this model.
Okay, and I hear you, but if we're doing 1% a year, 10 years, it'll be 10%. Well, because we're going back to the households that you told me. You said 9,500 households. If we rounded it down to 9,000 households, which sounds about right, and we're doing 90.
But
yeah, that's 1%, 90 of 9,000. And if we were to do it every year, that basically means in 10 years, we would have done 10% of the houses. It theoretically would take 100 years to do all of them. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's the, again, I just wanted to clarify this, and you did help me clarify it. And so that's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm like, should I ask these questions? Lisa, thank you. I don't think there's any debate that this would be great. This is excellent. This is not what I'm debating. But I go back to your piece where the number of people is at the 9,500, right? How many of those people are living in a single-family dwelling, multifamily housing, renters versus owners?
I have those figures available. I mean, I can get those figures for you. I don't have them available. But I would say that there is at least 50 to 60% that are renters, and that I would say that there's probably and another division would be that there is about 60 to 70% of people that own their homes, single homes, as opposed to single occupancy homes. But the majority of homes that we have are, the majority of home types that we have are single homes, single.
Single-family dwellings?
Single-family dwellings.
Okay, that's helpful. And so would you have a program, an overarching program, but different for the multifamily, because these are owners that own that, right? Or how would you do that? I know I'm getting in the weeds,
No,
but okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, this is really a huge challenge, as we all know, and part of it is, how do we get? I'm going to answer your question. How do we get in the front of the line to get the money that is out there for the Inflation Reduction Act? And it's not just a matter of, getting the equipment and putting it in. It's like being able to assess your house, to know what equipment that you need in your house, to be able to be educated and have your hand held through for all the rebates that you're entitled to. And then to have the opportunity to possibly be a workforce for it. We're focusing on the single-family housing right now because it is the cleanest beginning for doing this as a model, because the problems that we have, or the lack of clear guidance that we have, or decisions that we have for landlords and renters, is really difficult. Because if we were doing a program that benefited, that was for landlords and renters, then we have a whole different legal mess. Obligation that we have to go through.
Okay.
And so our idea is to focus on that subset of the population, because there are other entities that are working on multi-unit homes, such as our housing units. So that is why we've taken this slice of the pie.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And so these community advocates that you're proposing would, I would say you would have this marketing program that you would say, we're looking for these types of people or types of homes. You would have to be willing to have someone come into your home and do an assessment, if you will. I'm just trying to, in my head, understand this. And then they would do an assessment and say, at the minimum, this is what you need. At the max, this is what you need. And then it will go to this group that would determine, or you're saying, yeah, if you need a whole 100% retrofit, you would approve that?
Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, having an assessment is an important first step. Mm-hmm. And having someone in the construction industry giving you that breakdown is another important step. And deciding what is economically feasible is part of the determining factor as to what can be done. But the community advocates would be a trusted member of the community that can explain, this is what the program is, these are the possible rebates you get, these are the possible, this is how we're going to organize it, this is when you can check in to the program, and then in coordination with someone in the construction industry. So I can't say at this juncture, like how much is going to be done, because we're still at the infancy of it. I mean, I haven't planned this whole thing out because I don't know if I have the resources to be able to do it. But I have enough information to be able to assess the viability of heat pumps and weatherization and technologies and workforce development and all those other sorts of things. So I have all the pieces of the puzzle. I haven't built the whole puzzle because I don't want to build it myself. I want to build it with the community. I want to be able to listen to what the community is saying in order to be able to figure out how this puzzle should look.
I appreciate that, Lisa. Coming from really a social work perspective, I completely understand working with promotores and community health workers. I also understand, and I believe in that philosophy. I think it would be really helpful. I guess I'm just trying to understand what you're asking us. So I'm hearing a number of things, but it's going to be in partnership with community, and I love that. And El Paso Electric, right? And there's all these rebates and stuff that are out there, if you will. But there's going to be a limited amount of money, and I'm thinking, okay, you're saying, council, we need to get in front of this. There's this money out there, and you're presenting to, or maybe in the form of a proposal, this is what we want to see happen. Am I on track? Yes, okay. I think we should do that, for sure. Let's get ready for that. But if the figures as Mayor presented are correct, I am too concerned 1% of this total group gives me some pause. So I'm feeling like at the minimum, we have to have some minimum. You got to have weatherization. We got to have a heat pump. If you just had that, worked on that, would you be able to serve more people?
Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, yes.
Okay. I think we want to serve more people, don't we?
Yes, we do, and yes.
So what are you asking us, Lisa, today? You're presenting this, and I understand, and I love it. I love new programs. This is a great idea.
Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, what I'm suggesting is that we have a unique opportunity with so much rebate and tax credit that is out there. And it is an opportunity to reshape the way we do our programs so that we have an opportunity to develop more workforce, that we have community members that are taking the lead to drive this program as opposed to just be recipients of it, and to address very serious problems with resiliency, both resiliency in terms of thermal comfort as well as the sustainability of your income. So I'm asking you to trust us to use this money wisely with community co-creating this, to be able to take a new look at how we go about making change in the community.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I think it's an excellent program. We should really do what we can to assist others, especially those that are right in the low to moderate income. I think it's an important thing. There's so much there that makes it very difficult, especially for our low income folks. And I would be appreciative of seeing those numbers, Lisa,
Absolutely.
on the low and the moderate, and that would be helpful to me. I think maybe just sifting out a little more, giving us what might you be presenting as a formal proposal to the government on this would be much helpful too. So I know you don't know that, and you wanted
the government.
Aren't you going? There's all this money out there, correct?
Oh, I see.
Right?
Yes.
And you're going to make a proposal, I'm assuming, to them?
Mayor Pro Tem Gondra, we don't have to make a proposal to them. Any low income person is eligible for $8,000 rebate just for the heat pump. They get $3,200 a year for weatherization. It is just a matter of them being able to submit a request for it.
Have the wherewithal to do it.
Yes, and that's where the community advocates come in.
Okay, that's it. I'm good. In my head, I understand. Thank you.
I appreciate the questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Ifo, did you want to say something before the council?
Sure. One of the things I was just, we're talking to the mayor about is one of the things that's interesting about this proposal as opposed to the other, the previous proposal, is that it's taking that sort of finite amount of money, which is $700,000 to $800,000, and leveraging it to go out and leverage it for all that's out there. And we don't know what's out there, but we know that there's a lot of money out there. And to be able to use that $700,000 to $800,000, you can only, no matter what you do, you can only help so many people with $700,000 to $800,000. But having somebody that can direct people to these programs, having the programs themselves supply an ongoing, perpetual support to the program, then we can have more, structural change in our city. And I think that's the gist of the presentation. I think that's right now we don't really know how much we're going to be able to get, but I think that's where Lisa and I went back and forth. We met with Sonia about what we should be bringing forward. I was a little concerned about having a staff person. I know there are more, but I think the whole concept behind that is using that individual to be able to direct so that it's not just 700,000, it's, whatever with this new act, with what's out there, with EPE, with other organizations, and then come back with an opportunity. I know Lisa had a spreadsheet that we could share, maybe send to the council about potential, if we did have those rebates, what it could look like. And I know it probably wasn't shared because these are estimates right now, but that's the gist. I just wanted to, not to take anything away from the presentation, Lisa, but just just the gist of what was being presented.
Thank you for your clarification.
I appreciate that, Ifo. And if I may, one more thing. And I've been thinking, Lisa, and I can understand where you want the staff person, and I think this is all good information. But let me just ask you this. So if you think it's going to 700,000, that means that we're getting 1.4 million right now from the other 2%. And it's my knowledge that it's probably just put into the general fund. Okay? So if we really want to make a change, I'm supportive of this, and we can't approve it today, or if it's, and staff's gonna, I haven't even told Ifo this. So why don't we do this? Why don't we look at dedicating the full 3%? That means moving that 1.4 million into this program, use that extra money to buy, because you're telling me that we're getting 5 to 1. So for every dollar we spend, we're gonna get 5.
Oh, that's right.
Right, okay. So we're going to spend $6,000. We'll get, the resident will get $30,000 worth of package. So if there's a consensus for at least to send this back to staff and take a look at it that way, now you're talking a lot. You're talking 270, even more, 300 houses now. Now the number's going up, and I'm feeling a lot better. You see what I'm saying? But I don't know where they're going to get where they're going to pull that extra 1.4 million. We just went over a bunch of stuff. So I have an idea, but
I like it.
Yeah, but,
Mayor, if I may,
sure. I just wanted to say that so that okay, now I'm done.
I think we're about as clear as mud at this point, and so before we get into the weeds anymore, I would make a suggestion that, given that we don't know yet, these are totally estimates, this is a little bit premature, I think, though appreciated, that if this could come back to a PRC. I would suggest the housing PRC, given that there's a lot of conversations about housing, especially low, moderate income housing, but TSI could work as well. I feel like we are, I'm very unclear about what's happening right now, even though, to be honest with you, I feel like philosophically I'm there with you and I get it and I understand. And I think this council does. I think we're getting really in the weeds on something that isn't totally fleshed out, and we have time to flesh it out.
Councilor Flores, and did someone else did you turn your light on, Councilor Graham? No? Okay, Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much, Lisa. I really love this idea. It's a great idea, but I think you've heard from 3 or 4 of us now that it is an idea. Now, insofar as adding the one additional sustainability staff person and removing that 11% of FFA, I mean, that, to me, what the El Paso Electric Franchise-Free Agreement, I think you were trying to figure that whatever that percentage is, that equates to the hiring of one staff person. I don't know about that. But I think that we would be better served if you would let us know who those community advocates would be, and then who is the construction manager to implement a scalable LMI retrofit program, and then develop partnerships that advance energy workforce opportunities. It seems to me that everything you've listed is absolutely fabulous. I think that you have to have conversations with 2, 3, and 4, and in terms of working, or in terms of, it seems to me, I think the sustainability staff person would, it's almost like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do you do you hire someone? Would you hire someone that's really out there in the community and really knows how to work with, how to work on getting this done? The other thing about the IRA, it sounds like the Irish whatever army, but the Inflation Reduction Act, it seems to me that's a federal program, and it would probably be good to speak with someone from Senator Heinrich's office or from Ben Ray Lujan's office in terms of just in terms of working with other agencies throughout the U.S., in the United States. So what would that one additional staff person do? Would that person be developing this resiliency program and then advise us, the council and city manager, as to points 2, 3, and 4? Or is there already a community group out there?
Mayor, Councilor Flores, I think they've thrown you guys for a looper, and that this is, I'm trying to have this be developed by the community. But I want to be able to tell the community that we have a small nest egg to be able to work from. So there is an ability to be able to navigate the scale. I realize that I have presented this in a way that is near and dear to my heart as a sustainability person about worrying about climate change and equity issues. I do have, as city manager said, I do have a budget. I have best practices of the best ways to do workforce development, of partnering with community members and doing the construction management. I know different ways that we could have advocates work on this, because I have a contractor who has interviewed everybody in the country about what are best practices, lessons learned for them. And I have that information as a resource for the community, and I want to present it to them and say, what's a good fit for you? You know, what is it that you want? Do you want, is energy burden the most important thing for you, or is getting your kid a job the most important thing for you? Because we'll be able to pivot to be able to respond to those needs and define it in terms of what the community is asking for, where they feel most burdened. So I am in a bind right now to be able to answer your questions as specifically as you want. I guess I was hoping that you would trust me, but I'm not there yet. I just know that there is a lot of money out there, and that I feel it's very important, if we're true to putting the frontline community front and center, then they need to be at the table. And we already have 25 people that we brought together, and one of the counselors was there as well. So we are starting that process. It's a 10-month process where we're diving into each one of these areas and defining it with them. So that is where I'm headed. I don't have the answers for you at this point.
Well, you have answered. You have answered, Lisa, because you're telling us you already have 25 people in the community, and it's not a question of trust.
I know.
I think I know you, and you know me well enough to know that your heart and your brain, and it's very near and dear to you. And I think everybody up here shares that sentiment. I speak for myself and perhaps for my colleagues here, but whenever we make a decision to distribute money that isn't mine personally, we have to be very careful about how that's done. And because, we're just we just have to we have to take that, it's a responsibility in terms of, issuing, to authorize, to vote on something like this and then have the funds that follow. So if you have 25 people in the community, and those would help with all these numbers, the elements 1 through 4, well, 2 through 4. Well, that would be, that would have been really helpful in terms of what these 25 people have actually, what the information they have to move forward should this be implemented. And I'm just wondering, have you spoken to Renee Romo or Senator Heinrich's office?
Both Mayor, Councilor Flores, both Sylvia Ulloa and Renee Romo attend those meetings.
Oh, well, see, I don't know if the rest of the councilors or Mr. Peely, everybody up here, I didn't know that. Knowing that they're behind it and they're well aware of how the IRA functions and how it's distributed and everything and all these other programs, that changes everything for me. And you said that you know someone in the construction industry who would be able to implement the retrofit program. Have you developed, or do you have people in the energy workforce that you potentially can develop partnerships with?
Mayor, Councilor Flores, there are several different options that are available depending on what the community wants. We could have apprenticeships, internships. We could have create a co-op of small businesses that would share engineers and auditors to be able to do the program. And it all depends. We haven't gotten into the workforce decision yet, but those are all options. Like I know all the options that are on the table. I don't know which one the community wants to do, whether they feel like there are so many small businesses that have a hard time navigating because they don't have a licensed electrician on board, or they don't have, but they could share one amongst it. So a co-op is one model that we have. There's other models where we could have internships from the high school construction company, or we could have DACC use it as an internship. These are all ways that we're exploring it, but we want to make sure that every piece of this taps into something that benefits the community.
Right. And then the one more staff person would be focused entirely on this project.
Mayor, Councilor Flores, yes.
And that person, what kind of requirements, job requirements of that person? What kind of expertise or experience would you need for that person?
Mayor, Councilor Flores, most probably it'd be someone that is in the building sector, building performance sector.
I see. Thank you so much, Lisa. I love the concept, and I support you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Councilor, the senator's office just texted me. They said that the chicken came first. So, since you support everything that they say, yeah, right. So that ends that story. Any other comments? So I guess maybe come back with a little bit more specificity and maybe come back with 2% or all three. I don't know, but I don't know if I can support just at 1%, because I want to make a real difference. And I think 90 houses is good, but it's not, because they're gonna face the phone calls. They're gonna get the text messages. Why did you raise my rates? And, but if we have a program that is significant too, 300 a year, okay, that'll get closer, it'll get closer. So I appreciate this work that you've put into it. I would like to see a little bit more money going to actual purchasing, because if we're going to get 6-to-1 ratio or 5-to-1 ratio, that's like I give you $1, you give me $5 back. I'll find as many dollars to give you, right? You give me $5 back. So.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know why my voice is so.
Mine's raspy.
Oh, it's been this way for a while. Maybe it's an allergy or something. But I'm thinking.
Those chips that you're eating right now.
I'm not eating anything. Lisa, I'm thinking that, and I have a headache. I'm thinking so much now. My heart is really with you, and my mind is with you too. And just trying to think of how to implement this and be effective. I'm thinking that there might be programs out there for people who aren't in that lower level income. There might be programs that work, and then more people would be able to benefit. It seems to me that the IRA is focusing on people who are who are paying an exorbitant amount, percentage-wise, of their income for utilities. Is that true, or did I misunderstand that?
Mayor, Councilor Flores, the rebates and the tax credits differ between what income level you are. So LMI, the low income, low and moderate income, get the lion's share, but but the lowest amount is any of us could get 30% tax credit, but what the benefit is for the low income is they get rebates, so they don't have to have a tax liability to be able to benefit from the program. And we are doing other outreach efforts. We are hoping to have programs similar to Lush and Lean this fall to step people through. We just presented, not surprisingly, on Earth Day at several different locations and things like that. We did the Power Up program. So, we are trying to get the word out there, but I think that that the frontline communities are the ones that I'm most concerned about.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is that anything more you have? Or that's good. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if that's it, then thank you for the presentation, and we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second, Graham.
Motion made by Councilor Bencomo, second by Councilor Graham, that we adjourn. Christine?
This is on the motion to adjourn the work session. Councilor Obeda is absent. Councilor Graham?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Cran?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Gondeta?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, we're adjourned. It's 5:10 p.m. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Ready? Okay, this is the agenda setting meeting for our May 1st, 2023 City Council meeting. Number 1, non-consent.
1 non-consent.
2, consent.
2 consents.
3, non-consent.
3 non-consent.
4, non-consent.
4 non-consent.
5, non-consent.
5 non-consent.
6 has been removed.
6 is removed.
7, consent.
7 consent.
8, consent.
8 consent.
9, non-consent.
9 non-consent.
10, non-consent.
10 non-consent.
11, non-consent.
11 non-consent.
12, non-consent.
12 non-consent.
13, non-consent.
13 non-consent.